Hi everyone, this is the Raymond Wood podcast. I am always super excited to do these podcasts, and I'm very, very excited to do this podcast because this is one that not only our players but also our parents are going to love. We have got Mr. Kew Jaliens. How are you, Kew?
I'm very all right. Yourself?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Now, most of you will know who Kew is, but for those that don't, maybe some of those mums and dads who didn't grow up with football, we'll do a little bit of an introduction to Kew. And Kew was a professional football player of how many years, Kew?
Almost 2 decades.
2 decades. And where was it you grew up, and where did you play your trade of football?
Growing up in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. Also playing on the streets most of my youth. So started playing since I was 5. Signed my first professional contract when I was 17 at Sparta Rotterdam. Had a spell for about 3 years in the first team. Then I got signed by Willem II. At that time, a high flight in the Netherlands. Played Champions League with them as well. Had a spell for about 5 years at Willem II. Then I got me a transfer to AZ Alkmaar, where I spent most of my career, 6 years. Won the championship of the Netherlands with them. Played Champions League with them as well. 50 plus EuroLeague games. So I had a very good time. Also at that time, won me a spot at the national team of the Netherlands. Played 10 games for the national team, and which brought me also to the World Cup. Had 1 game against Argentina. So yeah, overall, like the 2 decades of the high flights in football.
20 long years in football.
Yeah.
So the pinnacle of being an Olympian is getting to an Olympics.
Yeah.
I don't think people in Australia understand the pinnacle of being a football player is not only representing your country, which is like effectively being at an Olympics, but to play at a World Cup is for me like getting a double gold medal, regardless if you don't go on and win the World Cup. And we'll touch on that in a minute. I want to just start off a little bit before we go into what you're currently doing, and we're going to get into your mindset business, which I absolutely love. But just for our listeners and our followers, just take you back from when you first kicked a ball. So what age did you start playing, and who was like your big influence? Was it mum? Was it dad? Was it uncle, aunties?
So started when I was 5. My mom and dad always tell me like I was kicking things since I could walk, basically. And football was the thing for me. So my dad was the football player in the house. My mom was like the support, always brought me everywhere, every game, every session. But from my dad's side, his youngest brother played for the national team of Suriname, was the national team coach of Suriname. From my mom's side, I had a cousin who played for Ajax throughout his whole youth. He made it until the reserve grade team. So yeah, from both sides, like football's in the genes.
Football crazy. Yeah. I grew up with a lot of good friends in Liverpool in the UK, and I've got a couple of good mates back there who football just runs right through the family.
Yeah.
Like the 3 or 4 of them went on and played pro too, and now coaching at a high level. And it's funny that you have that football connection and community. At what age did you start to realise you were thinking, actually, I've actually got a good chance of making this? What age did it really come to you?
So around the age of 10, we kind of found out that I was a good player. So in the Netherlands, you've got like district football as well, where, let's say, for example, Northern New South Wales, you got selected for the Northern New South Wales team or for the New South Wales team. So I was selected for my region to play. And we played against like all the players that were part of the professional academies. And at that time, I just wanted to play with my mates. So I didn't really have the hunger to be part of a professional academy. So I kept playing on NPL level with my mates. But soon after playing with them, I joined like the senior squads when I was 14, 15. So I played first grade NPL, like the highest level of amateur level in Holland. when I was 15.
So that's a really interesting one, and we're going to touch on this. I'm so glad you mentioned it. So wait, you were 14 and 15 and you were playing senior football.
Yeah.
But that's not allowed because that's not how you develop as a player. And that's what people tell everyone in Australia. And it's my biggest frustration, and I know you're privy to it down in New South Wales as well. One of the big things that we touch on is sometimes coming out the NPL system and playing in a divisional system, but playing up 3-4 age groups.
Yep.
So someone who's played professional football, has played Champions League, has been to a World Cup. For my listeners and for everyone in the football world in Australia, what's your take on, should you stay in your age group through every age group all the way through 18s and 23s, or do you believe what I believe, that you should be, if you're good enough and strong enough, you should be playing men's or women's football from the age of 14 and 15?
Yeah, 100%. For me, it's about the quality. Because in football, your quality will decide who you're going to play against. So if you're too good for your own age group, then for you to be tested, you need to step up an age group. I think a big difference in that is the way we grew up in Holland, playing on the streets. So when I grew up, I went to the courts every day after school. And on the courts, there are no rules. There's no age groups. So if you play against a bigger boy, faster boy, you have to figure out a system to beat him.
Yeah.
And that's how you kind of grow that mentality of whoever you're going to play against, I'm going to show you what I've got.
Yeah.
And that's how I grew up. So me playing against men was about testing myself. Yeah. And the only way to be tested is to play against better boys, better girls. Yeah. They are faster than you, stronger than you. So what are you going to bring up against them to first of all compete, but then you want to beat them. So you have to find ways into becoming stronger, faster, and that won't be able to manifest if you just play against weaker teams.
Yeah.
If it's your own age group and you just pass everyone, score 8-9 goals, that's no benefit to anyone.
Yeah. I'm so happy to have you on and to confirm that, because obviously from my background coaching in Europe, coaching in the Premier League and all the studies that we've done, it was shown that exactly that you don't want to be constrained into an age group. You need that challenge, but also playing against older boys or girls, it might take you 2 years to work that problem out. Mm. But it's like with anything, you don't get anything easy in life. You've got to work hard at it, and it's one of the big things. I think if anyone's listening in, especially like the Federation, we've said many, many times, there's myself, there's you, there's 4 or 5 other guys who live in Australia who've worked at the top level, played at the top level, and have got so much information. You need to listen, because we're not here to poison the sport or make it a bad sport. It's coming from the right place, and it's coming from a love of football. And I've never actually explained my why and my reason why I work in the game of football. I wasn't an ex-pro, and I will reveal that in one of the future podcasts. It's a tough one to talk about, but my intentions are just to give players opportunities and develop them. And the only way we're going to develop the next Matildas and the next Socceroos to playing in the top leagues around the world is looking at some of these areas, like giving them an opportunity to play up age groups. There's too much subjective opinions about in football clubs. Nothing is objective driven. And we're the only ones in Australia who actually do anything remotely close to objective development and identifying players. So when you were going through the ranks of football and you were going through your age groups, is it 16 years of age in Holland when you signed like your first like pro scholarship, or what age group was it when you first signed like your pro papers?
So myself, I was 17 going on 18. I know there's a construct of like in Holland they call it like it's called like a fridge contract. Yeah. So it means kind of your assets are frozen until you become 18, I think.
Yes.
So you kind of have a contract, but not really.
Yeah.
So but when you're 18, then that will kick in.
And that's your pro scholarship.
Yeah.
Yeah. In England, it's very the same. I remember when I was younger, I had friends who were playing pro and they were on what you called a YTS from 16 to 18. And then it was that offer of pro football. And it's still the same in the UK now, but it's now called the pro scholarship. And then hopefully at 18 you sign that pro contract, or the club has to release you. So when you were going through your academy and you were going through all your age groups and you were playing up ages, what was probably one or two of the, because we'll get onto it as well, like you are a coach now and you're coaching in Australia. What was one or two of the big things that you think, looking back in your youth career, that really helped you make it as a player? If you could touch on one or two of them areas for our listeners.
One of the most important things were my coaches. So in Holland, it doesn't really matter what you have accomplished in the game. So you can be the biggest player in Holland. I know, for example, Dennis Bergkamp, Jaap Stam, Mark van Bommel, everybody that played at top level, they will start their coaching at grassroots.
Yes.
Instead of just joining an A-League club, getting into seniors straight away. They all start at the grassroots. So the grassroots will benefit from somebody that has been there, has done that. So as a coach, it's to get the art of coaching. But then for the kids, like, imagine being coached by somebody that's played Premier League for most of his life, played World Cups, Champions League, and those are the ones teaching the grassroots kids.
Yeah.
Like, so for example, for me, my coach, what age was I? Maybe 11, 12. He was an ex-professional.
Yeah.
The one that brought me up to the MPL first grade team, he was an ex-professional, played for the national team, played the highest level of football. So those were people that understand football. And for them, it was football has no age. So I was good enough, so I was playing.
Yeah.
And that's the support you need as well, because if there were coaches or board members who don't know football, I would probably be in my own age group.
Yeah.
And wouldn't have got that opportunity of skipping ages, playing against men when you're 15.
Yeah.
So that was very important in my environment.
Yeah, it's so important, and it's again, it's so good to hear someone from your background and your experience to say that it's super important. So then moving on, you've then got your first pro contract, and what was the excitement levels like inside you as an 18-year-old when you've signed your first pro?
Like I said, I started playing football since I was 5.
Yeah.
So when you play on the courts, you always pretend to be one of the players.
Yeah.
And so who you're going to be today? Oh, today I want to be this one, or tomorrow you're another player. But, and as well as mates, like, we just played football all day.
Yeah.
So to be able to sign a pro contract at like a local professional team, like that's what you wanted to get.
Yeah.
So yeah, everyone was buzzing, of course, like my mates, my family.
Yeah.
And for me, it was the opportunity to show myself.
So your first senior debut, who was it for? And did you start the game or did you come off the bench? And what was that like as a player to feel that in front of a crowd?
So my debut, I just turned 18. It was for Sparta Rotterdam, an away game, and the coach I had at the time, he was my coach at the young squad as well. So it was an away game, and I didn't know anything about playing, and then suddenly you see your name on the board, and you're like, my name is on the board. What's going on? And he's like, "Yo, mate, yeah, you showed yourself. I trust you. I believe in you, and today you're gonna play." So I kind of went into the first squad as a right fullback, but I was able to play midfield as well.
Yeah.
So that game I played against one of their big players who was a number 10, and I played as a number 6, and my job was to just take him out of the game. So wherever he went, I went. Like, he went to get the ball, went behind him. Yeah. So it was just man marking. And then their coach, because he couldn't get into the game, they kind of changed formations.
Yeah.
So instead of 2 strikers, they started to play with 3 strikers. So they changed systems, and from there I went on to play right fullback again. So great debut. Didn't expect it, because like I said, as a young player, like you just try to do your best, try to fit in, try to compete with your like teammates, but then the coach having that trust in the young player, that's very important. And that's, to be fair, in Holland happens a lot, giving chances to young players.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way you're gonna learn.
Yeah, it is 100%. So, looking through your career, before we come up to our first ad break, we're just going to touch on this a little bit. Coach, who was the best coach you were ever coached by? And give me one or two of the takeaways of why he or she was the best coach.
I have a few, to be honest, but the top for me would be Louis van Gaal. Not only for myself, but also for the team. So there is, how would you say, like people who don't know him and just see him in the press, see him in front of the camera, we have a certain opinion of him, which is not always positive. But for us as a team, he was just like a father figure.
Yeah. Always
there for the boys, always there for the team. If it was shit, he would tell you it was shit. If it was good, he would tell you it's good. So from a tactical point of view, when I had him at AZ Alkmaar, he already had coached Barcelona.
Yeah.
Ajax, won championships, won the Champions League, national team coach. So everything that he was trying to teach us, like how to read the game, how to read tactics, how to read opponents, counter movements against what opposition brings, believe in yourself, your mentality, also outside of the pitch, how do you carry yourself? Because you represent the club at some stage, like how do you approach younger players? Like all of those things were learning aspects for me.
Yeah.
During my career.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'll be honest with you, you touched on a really important point, and a lot of people see players or coaches or anyone in life and have an opinion of people, and I've been one of them as well. People throw certain opinions at you and they think they know you, but they don't know you, and it's so good that you touched on that people didn't really know or don't know who Louis van Gaal is. And I've been very fortunate to work with some coaches as well over the years. Like I was very fortunate to spend a bit of time with Carlo Ancelotti at PSG, coaches like Nigel Pearson, who was at Leicester City at the time, Sven-Göran Eriksson, and you see a lot of things in the press, unfortunately, especially in Europe. But when you get to know these people, you actually realise they're actually there for the right intentions. And a lot of people say they're only there for the money. And it's like, well, they're only getting paid the money because they've put hard work in at some point in their lives. You don't just walk in to become the coach of Barcelona.
Yeah, true. No, and as for Louis, for example, I'll give you a few examples. So from every player to staff member to lady at the reception, he would know everyone. Yeah. He would know your family. He would know your kids. He would know the birthdays. And for me as a player, there was a time where so Aisha, my oldest one, she had a bad night, like, so I didn't sleep, bad night, rocked up at training in the morning, played like crap, and he just came up to me and said, Kew, mate, what's going on? Like, you know, this is not you, something wrong. And I told him, yeah, my daughter's sick, had a bad night, didn't sleep, and he took me out of the session, sent me home. He said, take care of the little one, make sure you're ready for Saturday because I need you Saturday.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to come to training tomorrow because of the little one, skip tomorrow. But just make sure you're ready for the weekend because I need you on the weekend. And that was the kind of trainer he was.
And that's management, isn't it? That's being personable with someone and understanding that people have got other things going on. I was very fortunate to get to know a lady called Susan Whelan, and she's the chief exec of Leicester City Football Club. So she's in a very high pressured role. But I'd say for me, one of her greatest qualities was she knew every staff member in that building, in that stadium, in that training ground. But not only that, she would talk to you for like 5-10 minutes. How are you? How's everything going? You're married, you got kids. She wanted to know everything. There's no surprise to me why people are successful in life, because they're the things that people don't see. They just see what gets printed in a newspaper. And it's really, really good to hear. We're just going to go to our first ad break, everyone who's listening in, and we're going to be back in a few minutes with more Kew Jaliens.
Would you one day like to be a professional football player? Would you like to be part of our pro player pathway? What is the pro player pathway? It's an opportunity for all Australian football players aged between 10 and 23 who want to join us to become the next professional football player. On the pro player pathway, you get to join me and my team free of charge to an event all around Australia. When you join me, we're going to teach you the secrets of football in Europe. And one day, maybe, you could be gracing the Champions League final. Guys, over the next 12 months, we're going to be coming around all the major cities of Australia. And when we come around all the major cities, we're going to be running our free events everywhere we go. So guys, what have you got to lose? Nothing. It's a free event. It's for boys and girls aged 10 to 23. And I'm going to teach you the secrets of becoming a top European football player. Oh, and one final thing. We're going to be giving away 20 scholarships to join me on this program of a lifetime.
Hi everyone, welcome back to our second part of the Raymond Wood podcast. We've got Kew Jaliens with us now. We were just speaking a little bit at Kew about your football career. We're going to go post-football career now. So what have you done since football and where are you currently located in the world?
So first thing that happened, first of all, staying in football, was academy director for the Newcastle Jets, technical director for Northern New South Wales football. So spend a little time in youth development, setting up programs, and things like that. But recently, I've set up a business as mindset coach for entrepreneurs. Not solely entrepreneurs, also athletes, but mostly entrepreneurs. And the reason why is I found throughout my career that my mindset and mentality were a big part of why I was able to stay at the highest level for almost 2 decades. And also coming to the knowledge that not everyone is blessed or fortunate with a mindset like that. So especially now, with my belief of obligation and charity, of giving back, I want to help people who don't have that mindset or that kind of mindset to kind of overcome themselves and to be the best version of themselves.
That's amazing. That's a really interesting one to touch on. We touched on this in one of the previous podcasts that we've done with one of our other guests, and it was all around the people you're surrounded by in life tend to be the person you turn out to be. So do you think, looking back with your mindset, do you think because you were surrounded by such supportive people, and we will touch on, we did have a conversation yesterday over dinner over like mum and dad being a big sort of support for you, but also do you think the fact because you were thrust into that professional game, you had people like Louis van Gaal and all these really positive people around you, do you think they were the building blocks of mindset for you?
100%. Yeah, 100%. I also have to mention my wife. We've been together 38 years now.
It's very important you mention the wife.
So yeah, basically like before my professional career started, so she's been part of every step of my career. My mom and dad growing up. So one of the examples I have about the discipline, for example, is about my dad being 15 years of age, playing MPL 1. We had a family birthday on the Friday, late partying, had to train on a Saturday. And because of coming home late, being a young lad, like I was planning to sleep in. And I remember early morning, splash of cold water on my face. And I was like, what's going on? And my dad in front of me said, mate, you have to go train. I'm like, Dad, I'm tired. I can't. We had a party yesterday. He's like, mate, listen, I've got one rule. If you want to be a man at night, you'll be a man in the morning.
Yeah.
So pack your bags, get a shower, and hop off to training. So that was one of the first encounters for me on a discipline level of, if you want to go for something and put your effort into something, you have to have that discipline of keeping a high standard for yourself.
Yeah, that's so true. I remember I wasn't an athlete like yourself, but I remember Dad's rule in our house was like, you can go out on a Friday night and you can party all you want with friends and girls and all the rest, but you've got work at 8 o'clock in the morning. If you don't get into work for 8 a.m, don't come back home. You can move out and you can go and live somewhere else. And it was a good discipline that he employed in me and my brother, and it's one that I'd never forget. So you're living and based down in Newcastle, just on the outskirts of Sydney.
Yep.
You've had roles with various football clubs, and you've now set up your mindset coaching business. And we had a great day yesterday at the Brisbane Roar, where we met with a few people, and we had dinner last night as well. And we were speaking about your mindset program and who you're working with. So you're working with entrepreneurs. Also, we're going to hopefully get you on board to work within our pro player pathway. So we've currently got coming up to about 150 athletes on there. So hopefully we can get you to come in and put some of them protocols in place. So in regards to you working with, say, entrepreneurs or successful business people, what is it you exactly offer for them? And if you could just talk us through some of those points.
So for example, I've created 8 pillars around mindset. And what we touched on just then about the discipline, that's one of my pillars. Because as an entrepreneur, wanting to grow your business, discipline will be your number one. Like what kind of discipline do you have? Because that will show throughout your business as well.
Yeah.
So my first thing with entrepreneurs is I have to assess your personal level of mindset. So what is your current mindset? Are you bound to a fixed mindset, or are you on your way into having a growth mindset, or maybe do you have a growth mindset already? Because that's gonna be very important for me to determine the rest of our trajectory. Because it's gonna be an individual journey.
Yeah.
So I don't have a package that I offer to everyone.
Yeah.
It's going to be an individual one catered to the person I'm working with.
Yeah.
Because from the 8 pillars I've created, I have to see which ones will have priority, which you will benefit most from.
Yeah, I love that. And it so links across into what we do with the Pro Player Pathway, that we designed the program because, again, we looked in the complaints department of Football Federation Australia and Clubland. And one of the things we discovered that even at a team level, it's not really done properly. But if you delve into the individual level, the success rate is huge. Like every player we've touched on has gone on and succeeded over in Europe. So when we speak about like discipline and making people accountable and building that individual program, I think you probably see it as well. The success rate must be pretty high.
Yes, 100%. Because the reason why my business is called Number One Asset is that I believe that you are your number one asset. And if you don't come first, your business won't come first.
Yeah.
So, and if I can build you individually, like the success will flow on to your business.
Yeah. Now, we did touch on yesterday, you flew in yesterday, and the first place I took you to was my gym. And I'm very, very lucky the gym I go to is called Function Well. I give them a bit of a pump. And they've got an amazing gym, but also a restoration zone. And ice bath, with which you didn't get in, but I did. Magnesium heated pool, infrared sauna, steam room. When you talk about one of your pillars, health, is that what you mean? Is that, like we spoke about this a little bit, you say about allowing yourself time to think and just relax, or is it something more than that as well?
No, so health is my second pillar behind discipline, because your overall health will decide how much effort and time you can put in your business. So it starts from nutrition. What do you eat? That's going to be personal diet as well, because everyone is different. Different things will fuel you. So that's something we have to find out. Do you sport? Do you work out? What kind of workouts do you do? In combination with what you eat. Rest is a very important one. How do you break up your day? Do you wake up early? Do you stretch late? And what kind of effect does that have on the rest of your day? So what was very important for me was my weekly structure. So as a player, you know what day your game is going to be. So if, let's say, my game was on a Saturday or on a Sunday, I would know the rest of my week already, leading up to my peak moment. And I found in my dealing with entrepreneurs that they don't really have that structure in their, not in their personal life, but then also not in their business. Yeah. So it's very important to identify your peak moments, because we're going to have to work towards your peak moment. What do we eat in the beginning of the week? How many hours do you sleep? And so it's kind of a individual catered program. Yeah. To the person I'm working with.
It's a good rabbit hole, but it is like a rabbit hole, isn't it? Each pillar, when you go down it, like you can literally keep going and going and going.
Yeah.
Like that's why I think I sometimes see like these online programs and structured programs, and I always look at them and go, yeah, but you're missing that and you're missing this. And it's like, that's what I like about your program, that you're being open and honest. You're like, there's no set format because everyone's different. Yep. But the biggest thing I think you give people is your time and your knowledge. Yep. And that for me, like, it's so upsetting when you see people when they get to 70s and 80s and they pass away, and these people have had so much knowledge and information and they haven't shared it in their lifetime. And I think my biggest, one of the reasons is why I do my stuff is because I'm only 44 and I don't claim to know everything, but I've learned a lot in the 44 years of being here. And I can only imagine what's inside your head. And I've started delving in it yesterday, and it's a rabbit hole when you go down it. And I think people need to know it. The next one, and this is a big one I love, is like spirituality and that. Do you want to talk a little bit about that on one of your pillars and how you explore that?
Yeah, as well. So most of the time when you talk about spirituality, people think about religion. Spirituality is, for me at least, it's not religion. But it's how you present yourself. So I'll give you a bit of a background on myself, where it comes from. When I was around 20, I lost my grandmom. So she was not my grandmom, but she was my grandma. So I never knew my grandmom, but she was my grandmother's sister. So for me, that was your grandmother, yeah. And she passed away. But leading up to that, we spent about 2 weeks going to hospital every day, going through the corridors, hearing the sounds, the beeps, seeing the tubes. That really made me realize that I was first of all very blessed of waking up every day. Yeah. Be a professional footballer. So from then on, my perspective of life changed. And for me, it was very important that every day you wake up with gratitude. Yeah. Like being able to wake up, stand up, because not everybody can stand. Yeah. Some people can't even get out of their bed, breathing normally, because I've seen the tubes that go in and out. So for me, that was a point of, okay, if I start my day off with gratitude, the rest of the day will be a blessing. Yes. So, and that's, for me, that's spirituality. Because if I can get you to that point of breaking everything down and starting with gratitude, then everything that comes after that will be a blessing if you realize what you have and who you are.
Yeah, it's so true. Actually, touching back to mindset, and I don't know if you've read it or not or listened to the audio book, and we've touched on this before in previous episodes, but there's a great book called Mindset, and it's by Carol Dweck. I'm not sure if you've read it or not.
Yes, I've
and obviously
of her work. Yep.
It's growth and fixed mindset, and that was one of the lessons I think she gives in the book. And I'll admit, I used to be one of these. You'd get up and you'd stub your toe on the corner of the bed, and it'd be like effing and blanding and cursing, and my day would curtail for the rest of the day, and sometimes the week as well. And when you look at that, you're like, just because you got out of the bed and stubbed your toe, it's like you're gonna fall at the first hurdle. And I had to start really looking at myself, because I'm like coaching players and I'm trying to develop players, and I'm preaching something, but I'm also not doing it. And that's when I really started to delve into some of this mindset stuff. And it's, and I think we touched on it yesterday as well. I said I haven't been overly spiritual or gone to church all the time, but I've always had like faith. Yep. And I think if you've got that gratitude and you've got that faith and you believe in something, and it's, the possibilities are endless. So the next one, relationships.
So relationships, coming back to mom and dad, my wife, my kids. even my mates, I have to give them props as well, because I have seen very different. So I'll give you a little example of the mates I had. Being 15, wanted to go to late night shopping.
Yeah.
As for us, that was a Friday night as well. They would just send me home. Hey, got a train tomorrow. Don't need to be here. Go home, focus, because like you have the potential to make it. So do everything you can in your power to make it.
Yeah.
And it's no point of being with us because like we can't.
Yeah.
You're not that good. So and they would send me home.
Yeah.
And my dad with discipline. My wife like having the bad days, waking up grumpy, don't want to go to training. You got the muscle aches, and like she comforted me, making me a good meal. So when I was on camp, taking care of the house, taking care of the kids, like that for me is relationships. Because without all of them, I couldn't have become who I've become in my career.
Talking about relationships and maybe touching back into the football world, but I think people have it in the business world. How did you gravitate relationships when you knew there was someone who maybe you didn't get on with, whether it be a coach or another player? What advice would you give? Because that's one of the big things we get from our players when they come into our pro group Zoom meetings monthly, and they'll have a player they don't like in the squad or someone who's really mean to them or rude to them. How did you navigate that growing up from a relationship point of view?
Well, the first thing that I would say is the world doesn't revolve around you. So if there's somebody that doesn't like you, or you have to be you. And you are the only one that can share your gift with the world. So if you're going to let somebody intervene that, you can't fulfill your purpose. So there's always going to be people going to be against you. If you try to move forward, if you try to do the good thing, just do the good thing. Don't be worried about what anyone has to say. Because in the end, you have to live your life. And if you let people take away your good energy, it's energy lost because you can't pass it on.
Yeah, well, it's so true. And I think the next one, I think you said, was fear and risk.
Yep.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the fear and risk elements as well with the program?
Yeah, so that's also very important in mindset. So the fear comes in with the fixed mindset. So everything you do is judgmental, fear. For me, it's a narrow road. So if you're in a car, it's a narrow road, one-way street. You can't turn left and right. You only can see a certain distance. That's for me, that's the fixed mindset. And we want to get to that growth mindset where you're able to give, you're able to share, you're able to learn from different people. You can turn your car left or right. You can make a U-turn, even a reroute, because sometimes you need a reroute to go forward. And for me, that's the growth mindset. And especially as an entrepreneur, if you live in that fixed mindset, in that fear, you're scared to move. And especially if you want to grow your business, if you want to grow personally, if you let fear blind you and how you say, like, numb you, you can't move. And if you want to grow, like, you have to. So what I did, for example, with fear that always creeps in, like, even though I played at the highest level for almost 2 decades, fear always comes in. It's always that little voice that comes in. Hey, you can't, whatever. What if you make a mistake? And when I learned to take my fear and transform that into a possibility of overcoming, and by overcoming, growing, that's when I really started to kick off. Because now that fear was opportunity. So instead of numbing me, it would give me an extra boost.
Yeah.
Well, what if I overcome this fear?
Yeah.
What now? What can I become if I do? So it will give me an extra boost. And that's what I want to get to with my clients as well. Instead of looking at it as fear, look at it with a different perspective and see the opportunity of, what if I overcome?
Yeah.
What if I'm going to be better? And that's one of the fun things for me to see in my clients, like see that growth, and from that growth comes the happiness, and the positive energy moving forward.
Yeah, I love it. I'm very fortunate. I've had a lot of good mentors over the years and coaching mentors. And one of the things I don't think I realised at the time he was trying to teach me when I was in my late 20s, but he said, like, even looking at the word impossible, he said, you can see it as impossible. He said, or you can split it into two words. He said, and it says, "I'm possible." He said, and when you look at it that way, he said, if you just start to look at everything in that way, can you flip and reverse anything? He said, to remove that word impossible from your dictionary to "am possible," he said, it changes your whole world.
Yeah.
And I'm a testament to that with like what we've done over the past couple of years. And I did remove a lot of fears, personally and within the business world. And it's like, it's just really, really helped, and I can't encourage it enough. We're just about to go to our next ad break, but when we get back, we will be finishing off on those 8 pillars. And then also we're going to be touching on something that I'm really excited to talk about, which is the World Cup and Kew Jaliens.
Hey everyone, we are coming around every major city in Australia over the next 12 months. We have got free objective football testing going on, guys. It's for boys and girls aged 10 all the way through to 18 years of age. The objective testing is quite simple. We'll put you through our 6 tests and I'll give you your results: physical, technical and tactical. And also, we're going to choose 16 winners to join us on an all expenses paid trip to Europe in 2024 and also 2025. Guys, what have you got to lose? Nothing. It's free to sign up. You get free objective testing and you'll get a free feedback, and maybe you'll be joining me at the Santiago Bernabeu in 2024 or 25.
Hi everyone, this is the Ravenwood podcast, and we've just got our last section to this amazing episode with Kew Jaliens. Kew, we were just speaking about your 8 pillars and your mindset business coaching, and we touched on discipline, health, spirituality, relationships, fear and risk. The next one, and I'm really intrigued with this one, this is one that I've worked on a little bit myself, but I'd love to learn some more from you. There's obligation. Can you talk a little bit more on this and how you add this into your program?
Yeah, so I've linked in obligation with charity, and for me that's all about giving back. The example I give is having a fruit tree. So you've planted the seed, grew a big strong tree, and it gives delicious fruit. So the thing you can do is enjoy the fruit with you and your family, and let the tree wither, and that's it. Or you can take the fruit, take the seed, and plant a new tree. So, and for me, that comes in with everything that I've learned in my career. To plant a new seed will be working with one of the younger players. So how can I install what I've learned, my strengths, my weaknesses, and teach the younger one to the next generation? Or in business, for example, teaching strategies that I've learned throughout my business career to like upcoming business people.
Yeah.
So for me, it's all about building community. Because if I can give you a seed, you plant your own tree, and you start to build your own tree with you, for you and your family, and you do the same thing to the next, like within a few years, there will be a strong community of healthy trees, strong trees, and with a lot of fruit.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at life, and for me, that's something that kind of you paid forward. Like you can't reap what you don't sow.
Yeah.
So and that's where it comes down for me.
Yeah, I think we touched on this yesterday about paying it forward, and I've met an amazing. How I originally met Kew, for our listeners, was part of an entrepreneurial group called the Iconic Family, which is headed up by the amazing Ethan Zanarty and Sri Arliston. And through this family, I met an amazing lady recently called Kathy DeMarcus, and she said life is all about paying it forward. And one of the examples she gave me, and it was one that I've recently started doing, and I love doing it because, it puts a smile on people's face. Little things like going to a coffee shop and paying for the next coffee and paying it forward. So that person who rocks up behind you gets that free coffee, and they don't know who you are, but it's like the effect it has. It's like the opposite of banging your toe on the end of the bed. It's like the smile on your face. And not that I go through fast food places anymore because I've gone through the whole nutrition thing, but even like last year, I remember going through the drive-thru at McDonald's, and I was paying for the Carby Army, and it was funny how this like little fear thing crept in, though, because they went, "Oh, it's like $68." I'm thinking, bloody hell, what have they ordered? I'm like, no, stop that. That was like the devil on that side. I'm like, you're paying it, pay it for them. And it's just little things like that. And I think it's okay to take, but it's so good to give. Yeah. And it puts the biggest smile on your face. And again, it goes back to what we touched on before. It's like people don't know Louis van Gaal. They think they do, because they've read a newspaper article in England when he was at Manchester United, and they've got this big opinion on Louis van Gaal of what a bad person, and it's really upsetting to see. And I think I touched on yesterday I was very fortunate to do my UEFA A licence in Ireland, and I think you said you'd done yours, ironically, at the FAI as well, a couple of years after me, and I was very fortunate to have Michel Salgado on the course, who's like a Real Madrid legend, who you know, and he's like yourself, he's played Champions League. He was the most humble guy you've ever met. Like, the time he gave you, it was never a problem. You could ask him anything, he would give you time of day. And I think when we go back to talking about A-licensed coaches in this country who all want to coach the top team and don't want to do anything with the 8s or the 10s, it kills me. It's like, these youngsters are our future, and our best coaches and players who've played at the top level, or even if it's, top level in Australia, A-League, should be going in, taking the under-10 SAP team and take them for a journey. Take them through for 5 years, take them for 10 years. You're going to turn them into the next Socceroos. It's that simple. But the hindsight in the country in Australia, it's really upsetting to see that they want to coach these men's teams, and with all due respect, none of them are really going to make it at the top level if you're playing NPL football. We need to really encourage that. So that one obligation for me is it's one of my favourite ones, and I love it. So the last two, and the second to last, is goals, and this is definitely an important one. So how do you assist with goals, and do you do it in a normal manner where you just get people to set goals and tasks, or are you doing it a little bit different?
I want them, first of all, to set the goals. And I'll tell you where I come from with my goal setting. So during my career, there was one instance where I made a transfer from from Sparta Rotterdam to Willem II. Willem II playing Champions League at the time. Coach was Kew Jaliens.
Yes.
He was known as the general in Holland for a reason.
I remember.
And he was really strict, disciplined mentality. And I kind of had like a job interview, and one of the questions he asked me was like, what are your goals? Like, what do you want to accomplish? And at that time, I was part of the young national team. So my goal was to get to the A team. I wanted to get into the national team. And at that time, there was no indication of me getting to that level or anything like that. But that was my goal. I wanted, whatever happens, I want to get to the national team. And that's raising the bar very high. And the way I look at it is, it's better to raise the bar high and then drop down from that than raising it low, because it's harder to move up from that.
Yeah.
So with my goal setting, that's my aim with my clients. Raise the bar as high as you can, and from there work your way, small steps at a time.
Yeah.
Because when you know the destination, you can always reroute. But if you just start here and move to point B, and you don't know your end destination, like, there's no guidance.
Yeah.
So for me, that goal setting, that's your roadmap. That's the guidance. So you know the end goal. Now we're gonna work on how we're gonna get there.
Yeah. And I love that, because that's one of the big things that people have knocked me and knocked Euro Football Star, because we put super lofty goals in. And I say to the players when they come on our pro player pathway, what do you want to do? And they go, oh, I'd like to play professional football. Who for? Maybe the Brisbane Roar. And I'm like, is that it, the Brisbane Roar, or do you want to go even bigger? And they're like, oh, maybe, but, and you can see the fear of like families, and they don't want to say something so lofty because people are going to have a go at them. And just for me to touch on like my background, I realised probably in 2005 watching the Champions League final, and it was Liverpool AC Milan, and Carlo Ancelotti was on the sideline. And even though I loved Rafa Benitez because he was our coach and I loved Liverpool, he was the coach I used to look at and go, to be able to be like him or work with him would be phenomenal. Roll on literally 9 years later, 8 years later, I'm walking around the training grounds at Paris Saint-Germain with Carlo Ancelotti. Now, I remember people used to say, what, you've worked at PSG, did you? What did you do? And it's like, yeah, well, this is where I worked and this is how long I was there for. And I was very lucky to be around some of these people like Paul Clement, who was his assistant. And it's like, if you don't have these lofty goals, you'll never, ever get there. And you've got to set your goals as high as possible. Because if you do fall slightly short, well, it still might be a good outcome. And this is what we say, again, it's understanding that, you know, if you want to be a professional football player, the pinnacle of football, whether you like it or not, probably is playing in England or playing in Spain, if we're all really honest, in club football. And I say to people when you come on our programme, is like, best case scenario, if you play an MPL football, you might make it as an A-League player. Worst case scenario, you play divisional football, which is okay. But if you put the lofty goal on of saying, I want to play for Barcelona or Real Madrid or Ajax in Holland, and you fall a bit short, worst case scenario, if you've been in the system over there for 3-4 years on a pro scholarship, worst case scenario, you're going to come back and get an A-League contract like that.
Yep.
So wouldn't you want to be with the loftier goal? And that's what we try and do, is remove those fears from the players and families. So final one, money. A lot of people like money. How do you touch on money and how do you implement this into your program?
So for me, the mindset about money is about allowing yourself, because that's the only way you're going to receive. If you don't allow yourself to receive, you're not going to receive. And there's a reason as well why I put that pillar last, because for me, if you can sort out the first 7 pillars, the 8th pillar, money, will flow to you naturally. But it all starts with the individual of allowing yourself, like, am I good enough? Am I worthy of asking $1 million for the work I do? But if you know yourself and know where you want to get to, you're going to ask 2 million instead of the 1.
Yeah.
So that's, for me, that's the mindset about money, allowing yourself.
So it's about knowing your worth, I suppose. Yeah. And that's, again, it's one of the big things that I've learned over the past couple of years, that when we've looked at our programs and what we offer, and if you're comparing apples with apples, we feel that in Australia we don't really have anyone to compare to, because what we offer is so individualised, it's so development driven, it's so success driven, and we're there for the athlete to give them that opportunity. No one else is doing that, and we really undervalued our business and where we sit as a business and what we offer to athletes. And since we've discovered our worth, we are now not only kicking goals financially as a business, but kicking goals off the park as well as on the park, but also through our financial successes, allowing us to build the biggest program and the most successful program, which in turn is giving our players opportunities. And we go back to the obligation and paying stuff forward. Anyone who comes in our pro player pathway, not many people know, but we actually give an 80% scholarship on the program. So we actually co-sponsor players $40,000 to be on the program. And we give probably, I think we've given about $2 million worth of sponsorships this year, and it's all about paying it forward and giving kids opportunities. So that's amazing. So in regards to your mindset coaching and stuff, how can like people reach out to you? And we'll obviously share on our notes on the show for people, but how can they get in touch and get hooked in with you for this?
So first, my Instagram, number one asset coaching. You can find it under there, through email as well. Number one asset coaching @gmail.com. And shortly there will be a Facebook page as well.
Brilliant.
Yep.
We'll share all that in our post notes. So just to finish off, and this is probably the exciting one, we did touch on a little bit about like Champions League football and World Cups. First one I want to touch on is Champions League, and I touched on 2005 Champions League final, Liverpool AC Milan, when Liverpool should never have won that game against probably arguably one of the best club teams ever in my eyes, that AC Milan team, who had a Dutch player in it by the name of Clarence Seedorf, who you managed to hook me in with for the Champions League final, which was amazing, and I got to meet him. And he wasn't having any bar of me. And then I mentioned your name and showed him a picture and I said, look, I'm friends with Kew. And then all of a sudden I got 10 minutes of his time. So for anyone who doesn't know, but Clarence Seedorf actually won the Champions League with 3 different teams. So when you were playing Champions League football, do you remember your first game and who it was against, and what was the feeling like when that Champions League music comes on?
The first one was, I think, Sparta Prague.
Sparta Prague?
Yeah, at home with Willem II. And it was all about the hymn.
Yeah.
So forget about the football.
Yeah.
Just being on the pitch, standing in that line.
Yeah.
The emblem in the middle of the pitch, and hear the hymn.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just close your eyes for a few seconds and yeah, that's it.
And if that's not going to motivate you, nothing's going to motivate you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, that was an amazing feeling. And I was 20 as well at the time. So that's not a lot of players can say they played Champions League at 20.
I feel, I'll admit this as well, I think I've cried about 3 or 4 times when I've heard that song, and especially when Liverpool won it on a couple of occasions, and it's definitely a special piece of music. I have it on my phone when I need to get motivated. I sometimes put it on pre my events as well, and it's just a magical piece of music. So just to finish off on the Champions League, who was probably the best player you ever played against in Champions League football?
So I will have to pick my mate.
Go on.
Robin van Persie.
Robin van Persie.
Yeah, we played Arsenal. So we had a draw at home, but away they just killed us.
Yeah.
And he was one of the main reasons why. But yeah, magical team.
Yeah.
Fabregas, Van Persie, Arshavin, they were ballers.
They were very, very, very good. So World Cup, as I said, I think for me, people understand the Olympics because a lot of people watch the Olympics, but in Australia, not as many people follow football, especially older generations. But to play for your country is probably the biggest achievement. But to go on and play for a World Cup. So what World Cup was it you played in, and where was it?
2006 in Germany. And for me, very special because I got heavily injured during the last friendly game we played. So I didn't expect to go, to be honest. The day of announcement, I was on the heavy drugs, laying in my bed. So I didn't even know what was going on. But the next minute, my dad rushes in my room, and he's like, "You're in." And I'm thinking, like, in what? What happened? And they announced the team, and you're in, you're going. And I wasn't, like, I had stitches in my leg. And then it was still the question, will I be fit in time? So worked hard towards recovery during the World Cup. And when I got fit and opportunity came, I got my World Cup game against Argentina.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you played against a very small player, didn't you? And not just in stature, but Lionel Messi.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah, it was an epic game. So, and I have to say as well, because people always say, "Oh, you played against Messi, what was it like?" But so they had Messi, Tevez, Riquelme,
a few good players.
But then again, like, if I call out my team, like Van Persie, Van Nistelrooy, Kuyt,
yes,
Van der Sar, Schneider, Van der Vaart, from Bronckhorst, like we had a top team. So although it was very special to play against him, for us it was about winning the game.
Yeah,
because it was just good players against good players.
Yeah.
So my sole focus wasn't on Messi, although it was very special. But it was just a beautiful game. I remember the crowd, like, everywhere orange, other side blue and white.
Yeah.
Maradona came and watched the game.
Wow.
King and Queen of Holland came and watched the game. We met them after the game as well. So it was just like, yeah.
So where was it? What stadium was it played at? Can you remember? Germany?
I think Frankfurt.
Frankfurt.
I think.
And score? What was the final score of the game for all this?
0-0.
0-0.
Yeah, so as a defender playing against Tevez, Messi, Riquelme.
So you kept them quiet.
Yeah, that's a win.
Yeah,
That's a win.
that is definitely a win. That was definitely a win. So before we finish off with inside football, do you still have a good close network within the football fraternity? Did you keep in touch with any players you played with? And
yeah, off and on. Sometimes difficult because everyone goes their own way. We change numbers a lot. But yeah, still in contact with a few. Every time I go back to Holland, I always go past AZ Alkmaar. Still got good contacts there with board members. I went there a few months ago, spent time with the team that plays the youth league.
Yeah.
I spent a few days with the first team coaching staff as well. So, and that's always good to be in that realm of football. A few years ago, I spent some time at Liverpool at the academy. Spent a day with the first team as well. Through Pepijn Leinders, assistant coach of club. So yeah, I have my network, and it's always good to be like received well in football.
Yeah.
I think I carry like a good name within the football world, so that's a positive. And yeah, football's been my life, so it's always good to be in football, be around football people, like-minded people. So yeah, it's always good fun.
Yeah, and I think just one final one to touch on. It's funny, we talk about the 5 degrees of separation, but we've got a bit of a triangle, me and you and another person, but we spoke about it yesterday. Emil Heskey, I loved him as a Liverpool player. I was so excited when we signed him. To then, many years later, going on to coach and work for Leicester City myself, and then to discover yesterday you're actually quite good friends with Emil. And we touched on that you'd obviously built up a relationship in Australia with him.
Yeah.
And you keep in touch with him on a regular basis.
Yes,
and,
we do.
Yeah, and that's, what a player. I loved Emil Heskey.
Yeah, a good man, very good man. Not only on the pitch, but also off the pitch. Yeah,
and he's got a couple of boys kicking goals at the moment.
Yeah, they're doing well, playing for Man City. Emil was coaching the girls at Leicester, and I know he's what's he doing again? Like a spokesperson for Leicester as well. So he's still in football. Also as an ambassador, as the person he is, so brings a lot of value with the football world.
Amazing. Now, unfortunately, we've got to bring that episode to an end, but I think we could do 7 or 8 episodes with you, just on them pillars alone. But a big thank you, Kew, for coming in. And as I said, we're hopeful of securing your signature and getting you in the pro player pathway and get your mindset program. I think it's going to be invaluable for our athletes as we move forward, and to be able to access an ex-Champions League star and World Cup player, and someone who shut out Messi in a World Cup game, which is pretty impressive. So a big thank you for me and everyone at Euro Football Star. And for our listeners and followers, we will be back in a week or so with our next episode. So a big thank you for everyone who tuned in, and we hope you all got something from that. And namaste and peace. Thank you.